prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live today after the game. Just a reminder, we go live after every game to recap what happened. And today we are recapping what could be a new Raiders low. And there's been a lot of lows, but this might be a new one. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer. I'm Ted Wynn. And yeah, today the Raiders just dropped a game, and not only just dropped a game, they got steamrolled by the Carolina Panthers, who did not even have a lead in the game since when, Tashan Reed?
December 2023, according to Joe Person from The Athletic. So
yeah, Ooh, that was a tough one to watch.
I want to apologize to Andy Dalton, first off. I want to apologize to Raiders fans for saying it was going to be a blowout and that the Panthers are not a quality NFL team. I want to apologize to my family and friends. That was, like all the players and the coach said, it was an embarrassing effort. They came out flat. Score could have been a lot worse than it was. They really, the Panthers could have done whatever they wanted to do offensively, and the Raiders couldn't match them. So ugly loss.
yeah, the jinx lives. I mean, I don't think any of us are shocked they found themselves in a game they should have won, against the Panthers with this type of team that, they could potentially lose it. But even, the worst forecast, I didn't see them losing by 14 points. And like Vic said, it honestly should have been worse than that. I mean, the Raiders had a couple garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They only had 7 points through 3 quarters. And this game was over against this type of team, starting Andy Dalton, retread quarterback. They look awful on both ends the whole year. And Raiders went out there in the home opener and got stomped on. So it's not really. There's no positive spin for this one. Like this was definitely their worst loss in a minute.
Yeah, I thought it was over early because I think these kind of games you can't give the other team life. You can't give them hope. Like they're hopeless. They benched their number 1 draft pick. They're kind of like, hey, we might be done. They come out. They're able to march on the field. The middle of the field's wide open. The short passing is working. Raiders get the ball. They're trying to force their run game. They've run for like 12 yards in their first 4 carries, and it's just a really bad way momentum wise for them. I don't know if the Panthers also are going to get like a boost. Hey, we actually have the lead. We're actually winning. We actually can do something. And it got worse and worse and worse. I just think just bad. I think they got outcoached. Besides getting outplayed, I mean, obviously Coach Pierce said that he thought some guys made business decisions in the game and the effort wasn't quite there, but they also got outcoached on both sides of the ball. So it was a total team loss.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a closer game than most people thought, but I did not think that the Raiders were going to lose and get pounded by the Panthers. I mean, I think Andy Dalton does provide competent QB play for this team, and but he also made a lot of really hard throws in this game too. Like that touchdown throw he threw another first down between 2 defenders, and that went for big yardage. And the Raiders haven't been really great at tackling. That's been one of the weaknesses of this defense is they have missed tackles, and it all kind of it kind of blew up on them in this game where they missed multiple tackles, taking bad angles, allowing a ton of yards after the catch. I thought they played a little too soft coverage. I like that Patrick Graham did come out blitzing, and we kind of discussed that before. But he did come out blitzing, which I thought was the correct approach. But the problem is they're just playing so soft that Dalton was just able to throw the ball short and just get a ton of easy conversions that way. And when it didn't blitz, Dalton had all day to throw today. I looked at some stats. When the Raiders blitzed, the Panthers averaged 5.9 yards per play, defensive EPA, expected points added, minus 0.1. When they didn't blitz, they averaged 9.3 yards per play with a defensive EPA of minus 0.71. So that's a pretty noticeable difference. But this team is supposed to be a team that is able to get home, especially against a offensive line like the Panthers. I think they are actually a little bit underrated, but they should be able to get home with 4. But today just seemed like Dalton had all day to throw.
It was especially bad on third down. I thought third down he had a lot of time. I think one of the reasons I'm sure is Max Crosby played with a high ankle sprain. He was pretty much a non-factor today. He had that one pass breakup. I think he touched Dalton once on the day, but clearly if Max Crosby's not Max Crosby, then your odds of winning go way down. But yeah, third down I thought especially the pass rush was non-existent, and he was able to pick him apart when he had to.
Yeah, Crosby got hurt last week, the second to last play against the Ravens. We mentioned that, he's a guy who's going to play through it, but it doesn't mean he's going to be 100%. He clearly wasn't in this game with a high ankle sprain, understandably. He wasn't himself. I think Christian Wilkins had a sack in the game, but again, he didn't make a huge impact in this one. And, of course, as we talked about, they haven't had Malcolm Kuntz out there, and they won't for the rest of the season. As we reported over the weekend, he's going to have knee surgery next week and be out for the year. And they haven't had somebody else step up at edge rusher besides Max Crosby. They've tried rotate different guys in there: Janaeus Robinson, Charles Snowden, Tyree Wilson came off the bench, coming back this week from a knee injury last week, but they haven't gotten anything out of those guys, and they haven't had the 4-man pass rush that they expected. Obviously, Kuntz was a big part of that, but even without him, you would think that they would be better than they have been so far. And not just the pass rush, but I thought the secondary had a lot of breakdowns too. Deontay Johnson seemed to be getting open almost every play. Adam Thielen, before he got hurt, made a couple of big plays. And then, as Ted said earlier, after they got the ball in their hands, they just couldn't tackle. Bad angles, poor technique, these things that plagued them a bit in the first 2 games of the season, and they constantly harped about it. And Antonio Pierce has talked about it every week, but it keeps happening. So, I think it's fair to say at this point the defense has been underwhelming. We thought it was going to be, potentially a great one this year, and it's fallen way short of that. Injuries have played a part in that, but them get enrolled the way that they did against the Panthers, I don't think any of us saw that coming.
I mentioned this in my story. I think one thing that maybe like a thing we overlooked was, and we didn't talk much about Davante Adams the first 2 games, but clearly he was missed today because the wide open, the middle of the field was wide open. There were guys on screens and crossing patterns that clearly the guys who took his place weren't up to the challenge. So I think he's a guy who, we didn't say he played great the first 2 weeks, but maybe he was a bigger part of their success than we thought.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Diablo is a little slow with processing the run, and he can miss tackles at times too. But he's good in pass coverage, and his speed is noticeable, and it was very noticeable today. The defense just looked slower, and there were a couple times where Eitenberg or Masterson, whoever was playing linebacker, just got outran by running back in space or a tight end or a receiver. So the defense is just slower with Diablo. That guy can close space. So that was a problem. And a high ankle sprain is so tough to play with. Whenever receivers get these injuries, like they're out for like 4 weeks, and even when they come back, it takes them a long time to actually get close to 100% too. So, like you guys mentioned, Max Crosby is a tough player, but I can't imagine that he's going to be close to 100% for at least a few weeks. And we saw that what the Raiders defense looks like when he's not at 80, 90, 100%. His impact is greatly missed. So let's talk about Antonio Pierce's comments after the game. He made some interesting comments. He said some players made business decisions during this game, and the coaching staff will respond by making their own business decisions. What did you guys think that meant?
Well, it seems pretty clear to me. He thinks some guys quit out there. He didn't name explicitly who he was talking about or which side of the ball, but it looked like that in that third quarter. They were down 21-7 at halftime. That was a bigger deficit than anticipated for them going against the Panthers. But it wasn't like the game was over at that point. You still had time to mount a comeback. A whole half at home. But they just came out in that third quarter lethargic. I think it started with the play calling. You talked about it earlier in the game. Offense coordinator Luke Getsy, he was really determined to get that ground game going, and I think that was a mandate handed down by Coach Antonio Pierce. And of their first 18 plays, 10 of them were design runs, and they went nowhere doing that. There's a lot of run pass sequences, and that's how they started the second half. I don't know if I can recall a crowd booing a play call that quickly. Like they called one run to start the half, and people started booing. They called another one, and started booing again. But it was
Smart.
justified boo. It's
They listen to
justified.
the podcast. They know what's
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I just don't know how they came out in that second half and went run pass again. Like that's when I knew the game was over. I figured it was already over when it was 21-7. But once they went 3 and out that way and punted, it was like, all right, this is done. But effort level. I mean, the missed tackles, we talked about it on defense. That stands out. Um, but I mean, they got pushed around in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So there could be several areas that he's talking about there. I don't think it's just one player that he's talking about, but obviously not something that you want to hear. I mean, that's highly concerning to hear that in week 3 of a season. And when he says they're going to make business decisions, in response, I'm assuming that he means, potentially benching guys or maybe even cutting guys, depending on who they are. So we'll see moving forward, but definitely a red alarm, bad sign.
My guess is tomorrow he may watch that back a little bit when he watches the film. But I mean, clearly he was a little emotional, and again, he's a guy who all week's telling the crowd, hey man, we need you, come wearing black, be loud, dominate this stadium, and they did. I mean, it was really loud. There was very few blue jerseys in the stands. The crowd was into it from the first second. So the fans they pulled their weight, and I think he felt bad about that. And I think, yeah, I don't know if guys quit, but obviously at some point, if you're getting blown out by the Panthers, you're not going to be trying as hard every play as you probably would be ideally. So I mean, we'll see tomorrow what he says, but I don't really know who you could bench at this point. I mean, the depth is not that great a lot of spots. I think they're really hurting up front, where really they lost the game in the trenches. Both D line and O line, I thought was pretty bad today. So I'm not sure what you can really do there as far as trying to spark some change. But we'll see what Antonio says tomorrow. But I thought my guess is tomorrow he'll walk that back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out if we see somebody's or some players' snap counts get cut significantly next week, if he really meant it.
Right.
But let's talk about the offense, and you talked about it. But I think one of the keys to the game was you have to be aggressive on both sides of the ball. I know they want to get their run game going, but like to treat this game like it's a training camp to like work on your running game, it's just a wrong approach. And I get it. The Panthers have the worst run defense in the league, but clearly this run offense is not working. Like you could tell that right off the bat. And there was 4 different times in this game where Getsy went run, pass, and they all were terrible. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I just think like that wasn't the biggest problem. Obviously, they couldn't move the ball regardless. But just to put yourself in that situation where you're constantly in second and long and third and long because you're just wasting plays basically with the run, it's just not good. And again, the offensive line, even in pass blocking, wasn't great. But I think part of the problem is Minshew holds on to the ball a lot too, and like I get it. Part of his game is like, yeah, he's a little bit more athletic. He can create, but he's not that great of an athlete where holding on to the ball is like the best approach in my opinion. And that's why I think it's time to give Aidan O'Connell some playing time and let him,
Jesus
get in
Christ.
and let him get rid of the ball and throw the ball on time and see what happens.
God, you love Aiden O'Connell. I agree Minshew was not in sync. I thought he had plenty of time today to make some plays. I thought he didn't. I think, I don't know if the coverage was that good or Davante wasn't great today and Bowers was kind of a non-factor.
Yeah.
So I think, again, Minshew didn't play well, but no one did. So I think the garbage time touchdowns each had one. I'm not sure that makes a difference as far as people think O'Connell could have done better today. But we'll see. I mean, obviously everything's going to be in play at some point, but I don't know, again, if this is on Gardner Minshew today. I mean, they can't run the ball. So teams are definitely, pinning their ears back. And against Aidan O'Connell, I don't think that's a good recipe. But again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong very badly recently, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm not really
there's 2
good.
different ways to help, midgetate a bad offensive line. It's you either can get away from the pass rush and make those second reaction plays at a high level, or you just get rid of the ball quickly. And I think O'Connell's better at getting rid of the ball quickly. I don't know if Gardner Minshew's ability to create second reaction plays is that good to where you could justify, having him hold on to the ball all those times.
I just don't think that's making this offense any better, personally. Like, I mean, in week one, we saw they got the ball out really quickly. He had the lowest air yards per attempt in the league. The pass protection wasn't as bad as it was against the Ravens, but like the offense sucked. So like he did that in week one. It didn't work. Like I don't think that's going to work for Aidan O'Connell. I just think the offensive issues are multifaceted here. Like I don't think it's just a quarterback thing. I mean, Luke Getsy, he's been rough so far calling plays. I mean that sequence in the second quarter where they ran the ball 3 times in a row, first down, second down, third down, and then went for it on fourth and four. I could not believe. I don't know how you call a run play on 3rd and 7 and try to be a serious operation. So the play calling's been pretty bad. Minshew, like I think he was okay in this game. He missed that throw deep to Trey Tucker, and he had a bad interception in the second half. But I thought he was fine. The offensive line though is really bad. I mean, they're struggling right now. Jackson Powers Johnson made his debut in this game, but he came off the bench. They started Cody Whitehair at left guard, so they're still bringing along Powers Johnson slowly. He played a little bit at right guard, but Dylan Parham, that was because he got banged up, and they brought him right back in after. And then on the first series of the game, they lost their Munford to knee and ankle injuries, and he didn't come back in. So Ricky DJ Glaze was in their right tackle, and offensive line just can't compete right now. I mean, they're getting bullied in the run game. They're not creating any push. They can't pass protect. And when that's the case, I mean, I just don't really know what this offense is going to do. Like they can't run the ball. The quarterbacks, neither one of their quarterbacks are good enough to drop back 40 times a game and have a sustainable offense. So like, unless this offensive line gets better, like they're cooked in terms of their offensive success. So we'll see. Maybe if Powers Johnson is able to get healthier and take on a larger role, if Colton Miller can bounce back and Thayer Munford is healthy in the long run. But without them getting better up front, I think it's going to be the same thing week in and week out for the offense.
Yeah, and the first series of the second half, what do they go out and do? They run, pass again, and it goes a 3-and-out. So
yeah, and I mean, you mentioned giving AOC a chance, and they threw him in there at the end of the game. Antonio Pierce asked after the game. He said it's more of a, it was out of hand. He just wanted to give him a few reps out there. So, like if I was a betting man, I think Minshew is most likely going to start in Week 4 against the Browns. But the door isn't closed on AOC getting a shot at some point. Like if they, the offense continues to be, inconsistent for the next few weeks, then maybe they throw O'Connell out there to see if he gives him somewhat of a spark. But I still don't think we're quite to that point in terms of them making a quarterback change.
I will say, I mean, it's early about the Luke Getsy and all the negative stuff we're going to say about him, but Justin Fields is 3-0 with the Steelers. Oh.
The Steelers are 3-0 with Justin Fields is probably the way I would put that.
Whatever. Semantics. Semantics.
Sure.
I'm pulling for Luke.
He played pretty well against the Steelers today. I mean, the Chargers today. Chargers have
no, he was solid.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about injuries. We talked about Max Crosby, and he's going to continue to play through that high ankle, but I just don't think he's going to be 100% for a long time. What you guys have other injury updates?
Yeah, I mean, we saw towards in the second half, safety Marcus Epps went down with a knee injury. He was in a lot of pain, down for a while, and Antonio Pierce didn't have no day after the game, but it looked significant. He was able to walk off under his own power and went back to the locker room, but he didn't return. So that's something to watch. Isaiah Polamalu finished the game for him at safety. I think we talked about Epps has had struggles this year, but I still think losing him would be a pretty big blow for a defense that already is lacking depth, in my opinion. And so as we said earlier, Austin Kuntz is going to be out for the season. Thayer Munford, we'll see how significant his injury is. But not only did they lose this one, but they had some pretty significant injuries to some key players as well.
All right. So where do the Raiders go from here? They are 1-3. They have
1-2.
Sorry, 1-2. They have a winnable game. Well, I shouldn't say winnable, but
can't say anything is winnable anymore. We're not doing this. We're not jinxing it.
Oh my God, the jinx! There's so many Raider fans are blaming. Like, I don't know if they're serious or not, but like they are, they're angry about this curse, and I see it all over my timeline. But I mean, it is a pretty bad curse that has followed us and the Raiders for a long time. But where do they go from here? Like, where do they improve? What moves can they make? Do you see them, getting this ship right anytime soon?
No, I mean my confidence is pretty shot, and after this one in terms of them turning this in the right direction. Understandably, we thought they had turned the corner after that Ravens win last week and kind of gotten past being capable of this type of loss, but clearly they aren't. That they're able to one of those teams where they're capable of beating anybody and they're capable of losing anybody, and they seem to overlook the Panthers. To be honest, in this one, they came in thinking that they had this one in the bag, and clearly they didn't. And in terms of improving moving forward, I mean, at some point something has to change on offense, whether it's quarterback change, whether it's a play caller change. You have to find something to get things rolling. Like this isn't going to be good enough for them to have any sort of competitive team this season. And so, how quickly that plug is pulled on either one of those spots, we'll see. But I think that's something that will be considered, especially if they go out there and stink it up again against the Browns next week, because the season can start getting away from you pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think they say every given Sunday. That's the cliche, and obviously they were the high of highs last week. Now it's the low of lows, but I mean, they win next week against the Browns, and Raider fans are back in the bandwagon. So I think this is definitely a low point, but I think there's definitely enough talent in this team they should be able to bounce back. And you would think Antonio Pierce, up until today, has had the players always playing hard and focused. I'm not sure what happened today, overconfidence or maybe just bad game plan. But so I mean, he's upset. I think we'll see what he does, but. I mean, he's been a Raider fan his whole life, so I guess part of him knows these kind of games happen, and maybe he and we all thought they were past this kind of stuff, but clearly they're not. Clearly, this is definitely in the DNA of the Raiders. This is what they do. Like Tashan said, they lose to anybody and they can beat anybody. I mean, so it's early, and we'll see how they respond. But definitely a winnable game next week, and so that's
Don't
what we
say
got.
that. Don't say that. Don't
I
say
say
that.
they're going to win. I say it's a winnable. All games are
Every
winnable.
yeah, every game's winnable. Yeah,
I'm not picking the Raiders again this year. Raider fans can enjoy that one. So take that one for it. There'll be no more jinxes. No more jinxes on our watch. But clearly, it's a low point, and I think it's. I was surprised. I think we all were surprised, and people on the Raiders, officials and team executives I talked to were really surprised. They thought they were past this kind of performance, and clearly they weren't. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, there just wasn't any intensity today. Like even in that first game against the Chargers, you just felt the intensity. Like they were running hard to the ball. Um, the guys were like running into each other against the Panthers. It didn't seem like they were locked into the game plan and what they knew what they were doing. There was just so many bad details and just seemed like such lackluster effort that I kind of agree with Antonio Pierce. Like I'm curious to watch the film to see if certain players aren't playing hard or doing what they're supposed to do. But it just felt like they did overlook the Panthers and they paid for it. So that's pretty rough. But they do have a game against the Cleveland Browns at home. The Browns just lost to the New York Giants, who are a pretty bad football team. So I don't want to say the word winnable, but it is a game that they that
You're
that
so
they
scared now.
might.
You want to say winnable? We can't say winnable anymore.
Hey
I'm so
man,
scared.
yeah,
Oh,
My
did y'all pull up
goodness.
to Ted's house with the black trucks or something? What y'all do while we was at the game, man? What happened?
Holy smokes. Can't even say winnable anymore. Oh my god. All right.
yeah. I mean, we'll see. They've had some pretty rough lows in seasons before, and they've kind of like gone out to like challenge for a playoff spot at the end of the season. So maybe this happens again. But yeah, this was a very very bad game. We'll see how they respond against a bad Cleveland team next week. It's not over. We've seen these very low lows in seasons before, and they've kind of bounced back and made things interesting in the end. So if you watch the Raiders a long time, I think you would know that this team still has some talent, and we'll see if they can get it together against the Browns next week. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and we will preview the Browns games and make our predictions on Thursday. So make sure you tune in for that.
I'm picking the Browns.
Okay.
We're not. We'll save the rest of our predictions for Thursday.
We will not all agree. I'm picking the Browns. We will
Yeah.
not all agree. Again, we all apologize to Raider fans for the picks and to Andy Dalton for disrespect. Very, very surprising outcome today.
All right, guys. We will talk to you on Friday. Later.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Hasta la vista.